On right now is Dan Rogers. His title is the executive producer of Nashville's Grand Ole Opry. What does that title mean? Because I know you, Dan. I guess I never know to call you the executive producer. What does that mean?
Basically, I would say I'm responsible for everything at the end of the day that happens on stage of the world famous Grand Ole Opry. You know, who you see and hear on the show every night that the big red curtain goes up, just making sure it's the best possible show it can be, and something that is not listed on my job description, but that I wake up thinking about every day is how I help propel the 95-year-old Opry to its 100th birthday, such that it's in hopefully better shape than it's ever been for our centennial.
Oh, wow, that is coming up. Wow. Okay, so here's the three things I want to talk about. One, how someone gets to be in the Opry. Two, I want to talk about how the Opry's pivoted a bit with the pandemic. And then three, what's happening right now. So just kind of laying out the chapter guide there. So we'll start with first. I think you probably get asked this the most, but how in the world does someone become a member of the Grand Ole Opry at this point?
So you're right. It's the most asked question, I think, of anyone who works at the Opry, and I have a great vantage point of my new office at the Opry. When I keep my office door open, which I try to do, I hear on a typical day when there's no pandemic, tour after tour come through, and people from around the world, from Australia to Japan to my hometown of Xenia, Illinois, all ask the same question you did, so you're not alone. And basically, for the Opry's entire existence, Opry membership has always been determined by the management of the Opry. So it's a pretty select group of people who are always watching the relationships various artists have with the Opry, and that can be, with the Opry itself, with the fans who come to the Opry, and with their fellow artists there. So there's no magic formula, and there's no, really right or wrong answer, which is one reason you can spend, if you want, Bobby, your entire weekend looking at blogs with people arguing about who should and shouldn't be Grand Ole Opry members.
Well, that means that you're relevant, though. Like, I like when people have differing opinions on things that I do, and I read a lot of that, too, about what the Grand Ole Opry does. And for example, and I've talked to her about this a lot, too, so I'm not speaking out of place here, but like when Kelsey was put in, Kelsey Ballerini, there was a contingent of folks who thought, wow, she's too young, is she even country? I'm on the opposite side of that, where I feel like she's right in the vein that keeps the Opry cool. Absolutely, a small town writer from Knoxville that makes it in country music shouldn't be penalized. And so, but I think the fact that there is such talk about it means that it's thriving a bit. I wonder, do you guys feel the same way when you see something controversial written about it?
You absolutely want fans to be passionate about the Grand Ole Opry. I mean, God forbid we do something and there's no reaction. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'd say about Kelsey and really all Opry members, the Opry membership, if you look at our entire roster, it looks a lot like what we want any Opry show to be, which is to showcase the past, present, and future of country music. So, your Opry membership isn't going to be just about people who have had 50 years or a 50-year career and all those hits under their belt. It's also going to be about, a young upstart that the Opry feels like is going to be committed to the Opry and is going to be popular amongst its fans for years to come. And that's what makes it fun, and what makes those blogs, if you ever take a chance to take a moment to read it, it's what makes them interesting. I will say, like, for every Kelsey, then there was a Gene Watson who we inducted in February that I was so excited about, because the man has had just this incredible traditional country voice for years, and it just felt to me like he had come and he had paid his dues at the Opry, and had just somehow been overlooked for a while, and it just felt really right to me for him to, at this point in his career, get to say he was a Grand Ole Opry member, and of course to the point of you can't always win. Then the naysayers of the world had, rather than celebrating, said, "What took so long?"
Yeah.
But that's a whole other topic.
You can't win. Listen, I've learned too, Dan, you can't win for everybody else. You can only win for what you care about. So,
Exactly. And at the end of the day, Gene Watson, sitting down in Texas, wherever he is, whatever chair he's sitting in, he knows he's a Grand Ole Opry member, and that makes my day every dang time I think about it.
have you ever sat in a room where, and no names are needed, obviously. Have you ever sat in a room and you're talking about someone who could possibly be a member, and they're so close, but you're just like one vote away, and they didn't make it?
It's never there's not a vote. It's just a matter of a conversation about, is this right for this and you know what? I should back up and say it's not about it being right. It's because no one really knows, because there's not that magic formula. But does it feel right for the Opry and for this artist at this given point?
Yeah. So, how often do you guys go and meet about, okay, who we feeling? Who's the criteria? How often do you guys have those conversations?
It's not a set schedule. It's just you're kind of always, it's kind of like, I guess if you're the manager of the Yankees, it's just always in the back of your mind a bit. It's like you're doing your job week to week. But just like fans out there who are interested in it, I think if you're really doing your job as one of the folks who are looking for the long-term success of the Opry, it's something you're always thinking about. Even when I'll say, even when someone comes out and just kills it in a debut, sometimes in the back of your mind when you're driving home, you think, what does the future hold for that artist? And can we engage with them so much that, Opry membership becomes something to which they really aspire?
Back in 1998, you went to the Opry as an intern, kind of worked your way all the way up to the, King Dingaling that you are now, which is pretty cool to see that, you've been there the whole time. My question would be, since you've been there the whole time, you obviously love the Grand Ole Opry. Just for a bit, just once, have you ever wanted to walk out and do a little performance?
I should not admit this to you because it is your forte, but somewhere along the line, some point, I'm going to work up 5 minutes of comedy, and somebody is not going to make it to the stage, and I'm going to go out and really bomb, and it's going to be awesome.
Well, listen.
Because for that story to really succeed, I have to bomb, and I'm fairly sure I will.
Well, we can help you with all those parts. What you do, you schedule me. I get sick right at the last minute on purpose. We've been working on your material together. You walk out and you don't nail it. It's perfect. We're ready for it.
I love it. We'll schedule lunch when we can all gather again. We'll schedule lunch.
That's funny.
I will tell you, there was a time, probably 3 years ago now, that our radio announcer went MIA before we came back from intermission. And seriously, there were maybe 10 seconds left, and our stage manager came and said, "We cannot find him anywhere. You've got to do this." And so I was ready to put on my best announcer voice. I was headed to the podium to say, "Welcome back to the da-da-da-da-da." And then I thought, holy crap, what do they even say? And at that moment, the announcer came running around the corner, and my dreams of being an Opry announcer for 10 seconds were dashed.
If you want real controversy, invite yourself to be a member. You go out, do 5 minutes, bomb, and then have Vince come on and be like, "Well, we're ready to have you as a member."
I'll tell you, when Hot Country Nights, which I had wanted them to play the Opry since I even heard the first rumblings about Hot Country Nights. I'm like, man, we've got to get them out there just because it'll be so much fun. From the moment those guys walked in the building, Dirks's character Douglas was certain that every time I approached them, I was going to invite them to become Opry members. It was
Yeah.
great.
When we were shooting the TV show, and he was in character, obviously, Dirks was going, all these cameras are here. I guess it's ready for our big invitation, huh? And I'm like, no, it's a TV show. Yeah, yeah. I do want to pivot over now and talk about what's happened with you guys, what's happened with, most, if not all of America right now, is that you had to make some tough decisions and pivot. And yeah, the Grand Ole Opry is still going, but it's happening right now with nobody in the audience. Like, kind of walk me through what those meetings are like and how that decision was made.
Well, I'll begin that by saying a genuine thank you to you. You are one of the few folks who we actually see every Saturday night, and you're out and about, section 7 or so, throwing it to the crowd and keeping everybody around the world entertained when we're going to commercial breaks and such. So thank you, genuinely. Thank you for your commitment to the Opry. I will tell you, there was never, and this isn't fake modesty, there was never a moment where we thought, oh, should we skip a show this week? Should there not be a show this week in the middle of this pandemic? Because I'll tell you, the Opry's live audience shows were canceled on a Friday. So we had people in town who were expecting to see, I think it was 3,800 or so tickets sold for that night, where we had to cancel that show. So it was the next night that we went on with our first Saturday night broadcast without an audience, and it was by the following Saturday that we were on Circle Television and on the live stream around the world with you hosting, with, of course, Marty Stewart, Ben Skill, and Brad Paisley, separated by the social distance we needed on stage, and we've continued every week since. Some weeks have been easier than others in terms of finding the right mix of artists to be out on that stage.
With Circle Network, that's a big deal for the Opry and the Opry brand. And it was a long time ago that we first met about the network. Before the show, it is what it was, and then is what it is now. But to me, I'm such an advocate and fan of the Grand Ole Opry that even before there was the show, we sat in a room, and I said I'd like to be involved, and you guys said I'd like me to be involved, and that's kind of how the first steps to Opry happened, which is the show that we're kind of doing now. I guess we're doing it like a version of it with no crowd. But talk about the Circle Network and how long ago that happened, and where it is now.
Sure. It's something that has been discussed really for years, basically my entire tenure at the Opry. But it's as well as anyone, it's not an easy task at all to create a television network, but we've managed to do it. And I think of the Circle Network as it's not just the home of the Opry, but I really think of it as the Opry's network, just because so much of what you would see on Circle really fits for a fan of the Opry. If you like what the Opry stands for, you're going to like all of that programming. And I'll say, this in terms of looking for a silver lining, I think that the one of the silver linings here is that we were able to have the Circle Network launch on January 1st of this year, and who knew how important it would be to delivering people across the country their daily or their weekly dose of Grand Ole Opry. When we were talking in January, I'm sure our goals were to have a wide array of programming and keep people interested in the country lifestyle programming all week, but we never dreamt that we would be among the few people standing on a stage anywhere in America performing live music for hungry audiences week after week. And, we'd be able to deliver everything from great bluegrass, like you saw Ricky Skaggs doing about a month ago now, to Luke Combs playing something he had just written, 6 Feet Apart, about the pandemic, to Ashley McBryde, who had obviously a completely different plan for launching her album. And, she couldn't do any of those pieces she had planned, and instead was standing on that Opry stage the day after her album was released, playing just a great music from the project.
I think I get a lot of people asking me the most, how do they find Circle Network? And, because of with Corona hitting, I think it's delayed the launch of the digital part of the network because there's some great content. Craig Morgan's show is so good. You got the show about artists' wives, obviously Opry, which is the show at the Grand Ole Opry. There's just a lot of fantastic content. And again, a silver lining is the Grand Ole Opry is now also being shown on tons of affiliates, like not Circle Network, but they're taking that show and they're putting it on, their ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, whatever the affiliate is all over the country. But do you know, as of right now, when they're thinking of launching the network so people can watch it on their phones or Apple TVs yet?
That's moved around because of the pandemic as well.
Yeah.
So for the near future, I would always suggest folks just to go to the website, determine how you can get Circle in your area, and then, of course, always for the near future, we'll also be sharing that broadcast via live stream as well. So even if you can't yet find Circle in your area, you can find its programming via the Opry and that live stream every Saturday night. And, of course, as we move through and continue forging our path forward, there'll be a lot of other great new programming, and you will want to make sure that you can find Circle on your device, on your computer, on your smart TV, etc.
I got about 3 minutes. I'm going to ask you some pretty quick questions here, Dan.
Okay.
All right. Who was cool to you back in 98, 99, 2000 at the Grand Ole Opry when you were like an intern, you were young, that went on, that was a massive star? Like, you're an intern, but who was so nice to you back then?
I will always be amazed back when he had his debut hit, how Brad Paisley seemed to remember everybody's name from one Opry visit to the next.
Good answer. I like that. Okay, how about this? In just a few words, what makes a good Opry member?
Great Opry member is someone who is a great family member. It's like the person at the... People always think of the Opry as a family, and I really do believe that's a great analogy. It's the person at the family reunion that you know is going to be there, that you can count on in good times and in bad, and is the person who loves to interact with, like, the people his or her own age, but also goes and plays with the kids and talks to the older people. The kind of the person that's the hub. But of course, any family, it takes all kinds. We need our bluegrass pickers. We need the folks who are number one on the charts, like Blake Shelton is this week when he's playing the Opry. And we need, the singer-songwriters. It's like an Opry show is at its best when it showcases all the great stuff that make up an Opry performance.
All right. Do you ever see or hear anything weird when you're there late at night, like the ghost of an old country star there?
I'll tell you, my office used to be in a home that was where Roy Acuff had lived. And one night, I was there really late at night. This is going to be a letdown. I'll just let you know. I was there late at night, and I was working on an obituary for an Opry member who had passed away that day. And it was probably like 12:30 a.m., 1 a.m., and I had finished that. And I'd actually read a file about Roy Acuff kind of for inspiration on what to write. And I was walking through Roy's old home with all the lights off, and I thought, come on, like, if there's ever a moment, this is my moment. Haunt me. Come on. Nothing.
Oh, you're right. We were disappointed. I was ready for the big ghost reveal. Well, listen, I appreciate the time. Obviously, it's a great pleasure to work with you professionally and to Also know you on a personal level too. So thank you. I know you get a million interview requests a day, and I appreciate you spreading some of that knowledge and forward look with us here. Thank you, Dan.
I thank everybody for tuning into Circle, for tuning into the Opry. Thanks for what you do, and I look forward to working on my failed comedy with you someday.
All right, Dan. See you later.
See you.
Bye-bye. Hey guys, it's Bobby Bones. Welcome to the channel. If you're new to the channel, subscribe and then go check it out. A lot of artists, a lot of songwriters, a lot of music. Welcome to the BobbyCast channel.